Hello everyone, and welcome to the I Didn't Know ClearPoint Could Do That webinar series. I hope you're prepared for 30 minutes of awesomeness today because we are unveiling the new features of our upcoming release, ClearPoint 12.5. Before we get started, here are your smiling hosts. I'm Catherine.
And I'm Rachel.
And as a few housekeeping announcements, we will be recording this session and we'll make it available within a week. The webinar will last about 25 minutes with time for questions at the end, so submit your questions to support@clearpointstrategy.com. Any that we don't get to, we'll follow up with over email. Now, on our last installment, we tackled managing process improvement projects in ClearPoint, and I'd highly recommend checking out that recording and transcript on our website or Vimeo channel. Just search webinar. So as you know, we're going to cover the exciting new features of ClearPoint 12.5 today. And this is a release that really pushes ClearPoint's capacities to new heights. So we'll start off with our new peer-to-peer sharing features in the measure library that make benchmarking easier than ever. And we'll do a refresher on measure library functions as a whole. Then we'll talk through new accessibility features, share a couple of interface changes, and introduce a new enterprise feature to assist with account-wide changes. So again, submit your questions to support@clearpointstrategy.com. And with that, let's dive right in. Rachel, can you start us off?
Sure thing, Catherine. So today we'll be looking at our new features in the city of Metropolis. One of the most exciting developments are some major enhancements to our measure library.
It's been a while since I've done anything in the measure library. Can you remind me what that is?
Of course. The measure library is a collection of measures contributed by high-performing organizations using ClearPoint. It allows you to view the charts, data, and measure descriptions contributed by peer organizations and share measures that you think might be valuable to others as well. In 12.5, we're taking the measure library to the next level with peer-to-peer sharing. This means you'll soon be able to reference information from other organizations' measures directly into your own account's data tables, and by extension, use them for calculations, charts, and benchmarking. Let's take a peek at what this might look like. So if we go into measures and then go down to our benchmarking measure here, you can see that for emergency response times, the city of Metropolis is benchmarking against the city of King's Landing, Dorne, the Vale, and Dragonstone. So because these cities have shared this data in the measure library, we're able to pull the data directly into our data table, as seen down here, from these other cities' accounts. And the series appear grayed out to indicate that the data can't be edited. And then we're even charting with them side by side with our own response time data. Gone are the days of having to open another window to reference linked measure data. It's all right here. And the response times are pretty good, considering the type of emergencies they've been dealing with lately.
This is so cool, and I can think of several organizations and benchmarking groups off the top of my head. A lot of use from having this data right integrated into their data tables. But how did you go about setting this up? Can you show us how to create something so amazing?
Of course. Let's start back in the measure library, and I can walk you through the process. So to access the measure library, we'll click into it here from the left panel menu. And when I first open the library, I'm viewing all 300 plus measures in the ClearPoint Municipal Measures library. If I click into our filter menu here, I can see there's a drop-down that also shows what library we're viewing. So if you're a current member of the measure library, this ClearPoint Municipal Measures library is a library that you would see. However, with our 12.5 release, you'll also have the opportunity to create smaller custom groups with the organizations you'd like to benchmark with. If you would like to form a custom group, you can reach out to our support team at support@clearpointstrategy.com, and any groups you're a part of will show up in this drop-down menu here. I can also filter measures by peer organization that Metropolis would like to benchmark with here. And I can choose how they're sorted, whether that's by date added, how recently they've been added, or other criteria. I can also sort through the library by searching for keywords such as response time. You can see that each measure shows who added it as well as when it was last updated. And oh my gosh, it looks like City of Winterfell just started contributing to the measure library. We've been wanting to benchmark with them for a while now. Let's go ahead and add the city's measure data to the measure we were looking at earlier. To preview the information, I can go ahead and click on the screen icon here. And the first thing I'll see is the city's chart data. Then if I click on the measure data grid, I can see which series they have shared in the raw data. If I click into measure definition, I can make sure that this measure fits well with our benchmarking measure. Based on what it says here, it looks pretty good to me. Lastly, I can click on contact information if I want to learn more about this city's data tracking process, or if I just want to network with other cities that are tracking the same things we do. Stanza Stark seems like a great strategy management professional to get to know. Now I'm ready to add this measure to the matching benchmarking measure in my own account. So to do this, I can click on the screen Add to My Account button at the bottom right. And for this measure, I'm going to add it to an existing measure, which is the benchmarking measure we already have set up. So I'll go ahead and I'll select that from the dropdown. And then I'm just going to go ahead and take the actual series from Winterfell. And I'm going to change the name to just say Winterfell so it matches what we already have in our benchmarking measure with those other cities. And then I can click Add to My Account. And I'll click this Yes button here to view it in my measure. And if I scroll down to the data table here, you can see that Winterfell's data has populated in our data table. And just like those other series, it's grayed out because it's a calculated series that's automatically populating from Winterfell's ClearPoint account. I can also add a shared series from measures contributed to the measure library directly from my measure. So to do this, I can double click on the data table and then click on the Add Series button here at the bottom. And then I noticed that the Iron Islands was actually also sharing this measure as well. So I'm going to go ahead and name this series the Iron Islands. And then for data type, we can call this number here. And then for calculation, rather than using a regular calculated series, we'll select shared series from the drop-down menu instead. Then some menus will appear here so we can select the correct measure from the measure library. So we'll stick in the ClearPoint Municipal Measure Library for the peer group. And then for peers, we'll see what the Iron Islands has to share. And for measure, it looks like they do have an average emergency response time. And for the measure series, we'll be taking from their Iron Islands series. Then once I click Save, and this loads here, then you can see that Iron Islands has also been added to my data table. So this is super cool, but what would be even more helpful for my benchmarking is if I could add these series to my chart. So I'll scroll back up to my chart here and double click to edit it. And then on the left, I'll click into Chart Series. And I can just scroll down and see that my new series have been included here as well. I can check off the boxes to include them in my chart. Refresh the preview, you can see they've been added. And woohoo, the City of Winterfell and Iron Islands data is officially part of my benchmarking measure.
Fantastic. So I know some of you out there might be in the process of establishing or updating your metrics, and so you might be thinking that you're not ready to benchmark yet. But the great thing about the measure library is that it can also help you see what other organizations are tracking to help you decide what would make the most sense for your own organization to track. And then you can also start benchmarking right off the bat. So this is where adding new measures from the library rather than just series can come into play. We're in the process, for example, at Metropolis, of updating our sustainability department's strategic plan, and we know that electricity-related measures are going to be important for them to track. So if we go into the measure library, we can search for electricity and see which other organizations are tracking relevant measures already. So I'm curious to see how Winterfell tracks this measure. They're aiming to reduce their electricity usage by 20%.
I mean, I can see how those long winters would drive up your heating bill.
For sure. Maybe we can talk through investing in some alternative energy sources. Anyway, let's take a look at their data. So this looks like something that we could track based off of the records that we have from electrical companies in Metropolis. So I'll go ahead and add this measure to my account. And I'll click Add to My Account. And first things first, I want to make sure that the destination scorecard is the department where we want to put this measure. And whereas Rachel selected to add series to an existing measure in our account, I'm going to add these series to a completely new measure. And for the new measure name, ClearPoint is automatically going to use the contributing organization and the name of the measure from their account as the default. But we can always change this, especially if we think that we're going to add our own data or other cities' data to the measure as well. Then if we have our objective set up here, I can select the strategic objective that I want to link my measure to right off the bat. And I can choose series to add, where again, the default name is going to be the contributing organization and how they had labeled the series in their own account. So I'll click Add to my account. And then ClearPoint's going to ask if we want to go straight to view that measure. So we'll take a look here. And we'll see here that Winterfell's data is pulled into the two shared series in our data table, as well as into our chart. And that means that we can now add our own data to track alongside it. So if I open the Edit Report window, Edit Measure window, go to the Series tab, I can click to add multiple series, and we'll label these consistently. Metropolis target, so that we can compare and contrast. Then let's click Save. And let's talk through one other scenario. So say we finished developing our Sustainability Department strategic plan, and one of the measures that we decided to track is a measure of how much our citizens prioritize the environment in their daily decision making. Now, this was a survey-style measure that we actually didn't see in the measure library, but that we decided was important to achieving our goals. So we've been tracking it for a couple years now. We can go and take a look. And we think that these results might be useful for other organizations to see. So it's time to contribute this measure and its data to the measure library. Now, if you've done this before, the option to add a measure used to be in the measure library itself, but in 12.5, we're making it even easier. All I have to do is click into Edit Measure in my account, and we'll see right away that we've got a Peer-to-Peer Sharing tab right at the bottom of our other tabs here. So clicking on that, the options for setup are similar to our current sharing options. We do need to agree to contribute this measure and have it be visible to other organizations in the measure library. And then we can choose which peer group we want to add it to, whether that's the ClearPoint Municipal Measure Library or another group that we're a part of. And then we want to choose a contact name, the person whose name and contact information is going to appear so that other organizations can get in touch with questions. Then under measure definition, we want to provide a clear, short paragraph describing important information that would allow other organizations to understand our data. So we've got a paragraph here that we've put together that I can just paste in, save us some time. And this should answer questions like, where does the data come from and what does it tell us? So when we're ready to add the measure, we'll just click Save in this edit window, just like any other change to the measure.
That means that anytime you want to update the measure's definition or add the measure to additional measure library groups, you can always come back to the edit window to do so.
And if you're already sharing measures online with the public, those are great candidates to be added to the measure library. We'd love to help you add those, so do reach out to us for more information on how to get that setup started. And let's click back over to the measure library for now, where if we search for environmental impact, we can see our newly contributed measure here. And I do want to show one other feature of the library, which is our tab up here for measures in use. So this page will give us the full view of any measures that we're actively referencing in our account.
This goes for both full measures and individual shared series. You'll see the measures appear here. And then if we click on this link icon here, we'll see where in our account the measures are being used. And we also have a link here to visit that measure page in a new tab.
Very cool. Now let's click back into our account so Rachel can show you another exciting addition to ClearPoint 12.5.
So in this new release, we're adding some ADA compliance features through a new optional plugin called Accessibility. With this plugin, ClearPoint Accessibility now meets WCAG 2.1, ADA, and Section 508 standards. If you would like this enabled for your account, make sure to reach out to our support team. Once enabled, you'll see a new accessibility icon in the upper right-hand corner of ClearPoint. Accessibility will allow me to enable a lot of great features, including a virtual keyboard, basic accessibility mode options, adjusting font size, emphasizing links, and adjusting color and display. So if I click on emphasize links here, you can see that everything that's clickable in the ClearPoint account is now outlined with an orange border, so it's easy to see. And if I'd like to increase the font size, for example, I can use these plus and minus buttons here to make the font bigger on our home page. And then if I'd like to revert back to the default settings, I can go ahead and click Cancel Settings here in the center to make our account go back to the original setting.
Awesome. So if my organization enables this, will the new settings apply to all users?
Good question. Once the plugin is enabled for an organization, each user has the ability to set their own preferences. So while the icon will appear for everyone, any changes made to the settings will only impact your user account.
That's great to know. Now, no ClearPoint release would be complete without a few cosmetic enhancements, and 12.5 is no exception. So the first one that we'll touch on here is an upgrade to the Collaborator field. Let's go and take a look at our Identify and Hold Additional Safety Events initiative.
And as a reminder, the Collaborators field is used when there are multiple responsible parties for a project or other element.
Exactly. So it's a good way to keep track of everyone and also to include these individuals on automatic email reminders and notifications. So right here on the page, we can see our collaborators list. And when I double click into this field, you'll notice a change to the editing capabilities already. There's now a really clear call and select none button if you need to make a drastic change to your collaborator list. The more likely scenario is that you'll probably be adding users one by one. So here we can still select them from the drop-down and click this really clear X icon to remove them from the field. So we'll save, and then we'll take a look at how this Collaborators field exports to Excel. I've got my project manager report set up with ownership, description, and more. And I'll click into the drop-down next to the edit icon to export it to Excel. This will just take a second, but to save us those few seconds, I've got an export pulled up already. So we can see that whereas the collaborators each appeared with icons for the screen, in Excel they're a really nice consolidated list separated by semicolons.
Awesome. And we've got one other helpful exporting enhancement to share too.
Indeed. This one is also going to be especially helpful for your project. We've added some additional flexibility to exporting Gantt charts. So let's take a look at our default Gantt chart report here. And we've got quite a few milestones that we've given descriptive names. So when we look at this Gantt chart, it's no surprise that some of the names are truncated. But when we're creating a report to share before or during a meeting, we want to make sure that these names are visible enough to identify and discuss the milestones. So now, just like our table style reports, we can drag and drop the name column of our Gantt chart to make sure that all of those milestone names are visible. And then when we export this Gantt chart to PDF, that column width is going to be reflected there too. I've pulled up an export here so that we can see it. We've got our project timeline on the one side and our really visible initiatives and milestones on the other.
That's awesome. So we now have one last super cool feature to show you that's really going to save you some time, and that is template scripting. Template scripting is an enterprise-level feature that enables you to make bulk changes quickly and repeatedly across your account. So, for example, when you want to add the same new measure in all your departmental scorecards, or change user permissions across multiple users at once.
And this is one of our more technical features, so we wanted to give you the quick rundown today with the few minutes we have remaining. and then there will be a more in-depth webinar at a later date.
So let's go to System Settings, Admin Options, and we'll scroll all the way down to the Enterprise Features, and it's the last option here called Template Scripting. So you can see here that we have a couple templates set up that we can try running today. So let's start with the Add New Objectives template to see if it lives up to its name. I'll go ahead and I'll click on the blue play button here. And a window is going to pop up where we can see a description of what happens when we run the script, followed by the information we need to identify. So first we'll go ahead and give the objective a name. We'll just call this good value for tax dollar. And then the scorecards where we'd like to put the objective. So we can go ahead and add all of our different scorecards here, all of our different departments. Awesome. And then lastly, we will assign a reporting frequency. So for this measure, we can go ahead and select monthly. Now that that's all set up, we can click the preview button, and we'll see that 17 objectives will be added. And if we click into this drop-down arrow here, we can get a preview of the ID that will be assigned to the reporting frequency and scorecards. So when we're ready, then we can go ahead and click Run. And ClearPoint will just double-click that we really do want to make this change across our account. We'll click Run again. And then we'll see a toaster pop up for when the script is started and completed. So now we do know the name of that new objective we added, so we can just quickly search here in our account and see if it's been added across the account. Nope, good value, not good text. There we go. And look, you can see that we have a version of this objective for each of our scorecards.
Awesome. That was super quick to set up, and we've got so many new objectives already. So let's take a step back and just take a quick look at how they're configured. So I'll click back into template scripting here, and this time click on the edit icon for our new objective script. Now here we can see where we've named the script and set up that description that appears when we click to run it. Below that, we've got the JSON for our template script. So they are built using JSON. And we won't get too much into the details today of the syntax, but there are two important parts to point out, parameters and steps. So you can see this not only reflected in the JSON here, but also in the preview tabs that appear when you're setting up your script. Parameters are the criteria you'll specify so that ClearPoint knows what changes to make. So in our objective example, we could have created additional parameters like assigning an owner to each of those new objectives or assigning a particular value in a custom field. Then the steps are the actions that ClearPoint will follow in order to execute on the changes. So now that we've gotten a preview of this configuration, let's run through one more example that'll be helpful to compare to our first script. Here we've got Apply Custom Chart Type. And so let's click to see what happens when we run it. So we've got a description here that says this script applies a custom chart type to charts with a selected name. And we're first going to choose our scorecards where we'll be changing the chart type. For chart name filter, I'm just going to apply this change to any charts in my expenses measure, so charts with expenses in the name. And from there, we can select the custom chart type that we want to assign. So I've got this custom legend and shadow chart type that I really want to use on my expenses charts. And when we click preview, we'll see that there's two steps that ClearPoint is going through. First, to find those charts with that name, and then update their chart type. And we've got three charts over here that will be edited to have that new chart type. So we'll click Run, click to confirm, and we can see that the script has finished already. So we'll go check out our expenses measure in the airport department, and we can see that we've got this cool customized chart with a drop shadow and a box around our series legend. Nice. Now, because this feature is more technical, we'll be speaking with individuals to determine whether it's the right solution for the changes you want to make in your enterprise account. So if you're a large organization with an enterprise ClearPoint account and you can think of account-wide changes that you repeat on a regular basis, reach out to us to see if template scripting can help. And with that, we are reaching the end of our time here today, and we definitely want to leave time for your questions. So here's one that's come in. I don't see the measure library in my account. What do I have to do to activate it? Rachel, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so first off, it's important to note that the measure library is available to professional, government, and enterprise accounts. If you're a city, county, or state-level government organization using ClearPoint, reach out to us for access to the Municipal Measures Library. Otherwise, if you want to start a smaller group with organizations from your industry, like finance or utilities, we'll just need all organizations to reach out to us to express consent to share their measures with the group. We can then create a new peer group where you can share them as well.
Great. So we've got a couple of other questions that have come in. What level of access do you need to be able to pull a measure in from the library? Great question. So if you are a scorecard admin or above, you can share measures to the library, and editors and above can pull data from the library into their own measures. So here's another one. How can we be sure that we have all data from other accounts showing in shared series? Rachel, do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways for this data to be refreshed. Whenever you save changes to the data tables in your account, that will refresh the data. Or we also have a central recalculation button in the measure library that we can take a look at. So we'll go to measure library here. And then if we go to that check mark here that shows our measures in use, if we click this green recalculation button here, that'll recalculate the data and refresh, bringing it in from others' accounts.
Awesome. So one last question here. When will 12.5 be available? We are on track to release ClearPoint 12.5 in mid-June, and we will be getting in touch with administrators closer to that time with the release details as well. So that is all we have time for today. We are looking forward to seeing many of you at the annual Strategy and Performance Management Summit next week, where we'll be answering many more ClearPoint questions, engaging with presentations and networking. It's going to be a great event. And we'll plan to send out some release notes with the recording of the webinar so that you'll have those for reference. We hope to see you next time on the I Didn't Know ClearPoint Could Do That webinar series, and happy reporting.